Amanda, and this is my great friend and very amazing dance partner, Michael, who's from Winthrop, that lives in my town. And today we're going to be doing 1920s dances. We're going to be doing 4 of them. The waltz, the foxtrot, the collegiate shag, and the Charleston. Now these were very popular dances in the 1920s, and they involved dresses like this that were short, and the women being very close to the man and everything, so I hope you enjoy it.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where Harlem fits? Putting on the red angle gowns upon the bevy of high browns from down the levee, all misfits. Putting on that earth red, that's where each and every Lulu Bell goes. Every Thursday evening with her swell bow, rubbing elbows, come with me and we'll attend their jubilee and see them spend their lives to rich, putting on the red. Come with me and we'll attend their jubilee and see them spend their lives to rich, putting on the red.
So those were the dances of the 1920s. Not only were they popular in America, they're also popular in other places around the world like Europe and South America, especially in Great Britain. It was really popular. Although I did have a lot of fun learning the dances, teaching them to other people, filming it, and making this really amazing flapper dress, I also made a tie-in with women's rights. First off, the style of dress for women were very different before the 1920s. They didn't have dresses like this. They had very long dresses with huge skirts, with hoop skirts underneath, with petticoats and corsets, and sometimes even cages used to make the hoops bigger. By the time the 1920s came around, they had skirts at knee length, and they had, they didn't have any corsets, and they didn't have any petticoats. It was very loose and very swingy, and it was very scandalous at the time. By the time the 1920s came around, the dresses were not about modesty and looking feminine, it was about being comfortable. Now, the dresses were made more like hanging, so the woman can look as flat and as skinny as possible. They also sometimes they had hemlines like this to make the dresses more swingy and free. Now because these were free and swingy, the dances got faster, livelier, and wilder. With this new freedom of movement and brand new attitude, the dances completely changed from something like the waltz or the Virginia reel or something like that. In all the dances, you may have noticed that everything had a really spirited high tempo. Now, especially in dances like the Charleston or the Shag, you had to, kick your legs, and you had to stay jumping, and you had to wave your arms everywhere, which was very different for that time period. These dances were very appealing to women and everybody at the same time because these dances were so lively, and also they wanted to spite the older generations that were so rigid and Victorian-like. But they were also very fun too. Traditionally, the flapper girl wore dresses like this, and sometimes they'd have fringe at the bottom, but that necessarily didn't need to be at the bottom, but could also go all the way up the dress. They also wore very bright colors like red here, or purple, or white, or something. They also wore beads. Now, they could wear either a pearl necklace, or they could wear a jet bead necklace. Now, actually, the jet bead necklace that I'm wearing right now is a real necklace from the 1920s that my mom bought many years ago at some sort of antique store. And they also wore very long opera-length gloves for a nice touch. Now, you can see that I'm wearing a headband with a feather in it, but they didn't necessarily wear headbands all the time. They also wore something called a cloche hat, which had more of a helmety kind of feel, and it came down the head like that. Which, I mean, you can't see it, but it was more like this and flat to the head. So the dances, the dresses, and everything was the style and the spirit of the 1920s. Unfortunately, with how the dresses were made with very sheer and thin material, not much of them survive today. Especially the ones with heavy beading, they kind of fall apart and get ruined over time. But luckily, something like the dances can last forever. And they can be danced and danced throughout many years, as I showed here, and anybody can learn them. And maybe 100 years from now, we'll still be dancing them. So now that you know the dances and you know the style of the 1920s, let's listen to some authentic 20s music from an actual 1920s Victrola.